I just blew that in your face. I'm so sorry, bro.
Oh, you're good. Maybe it's just back.
Alright, so I got all the drums loaded in. We're going to mix them now. This is what it sounds like when you don't mix things. So all you guys who think you can just throw things in and not mix them, I'll show you how. Right? So, I've come to a point now where I'm able to get consistent mixes literally just by looking at the numbers of what I'm mixing at. So like looking at the numbers here, like the decibel numbers and all that stuff. I'm not very versed in the terms, but I've spent quite a few years doing this now, so forgive me if I am not too versed in the terminology. Just know I know more than you. We got our drum bus, we've got our drum bus down to a certain level. So let's go. I usually bring the kick, and I have the kick sitting around -6 dB, right? In my mixes, I like having the snare sitting above the kick, right? It's how my musical taste sort of is. If you listen to any Chili Peppers album, or anything produced by Bob Rock, the kick is usually just sitting just below the snare. The kick and the snare are the loudest things in the mix, and that's what I build my foundation on. My foundation is built with the kick and the snare. Well, technically, if you want to think about it like this, right? A mix is like building a house, right? Your foundation, your concrete, should actually be the base, right? You want a nice solid base. Right, nice solid baseline that doesn't dip in and out. It's just there constantly all the time. It's not too compressed. It's there. It's perfect. Then the drums. The drums are like the skeleton of the house, right? The drums are like the wooden walls and the roof before you put on the plaster and all that sort of stuff. Then you have the guitars. The guitars are the plaster, the windows, all that sort of stuff, all the fixtures and the fittings. And then you add your vocals on top of that. That's painting the house. That's how you got to think of a mix, right? You're building a house, you're building something. When you mix, you got to mix with purpose. The things that you do have to have a purpose for the mix. You don't want to be trying to fix things in the master. You want to get things right in the mix first time. Well, you won't always get it done first time, but you want to try and get it right in the mix. So if you take it to the master and find out, oh crap, this needs more mid-range, take it back to the mix stage and give it more mid-range in the mix stage. Don't try and pull that out in the master. Trust me, if you give it more mid-range in the mix stage and then take it to the master, you'll accentuate that mid-range in the master, because that's what mastering is meant to do. It's meant to accentuate those sorts of things. It's not meant to fix things that you have gotten wrong in the mix. So yeah, let's start with the drums. I usually mix the kick to around about -6. Alright, so it's sitting cool there. Snare, -3, right? Snare is the loudest thing in my mix, so I don't want anything else in my mix peaking above -3. My rule actually is I don't want anything else in the mix peaking above -6, which is the kick, right? I don't want anything really being louder than the kick. And that also helps with peaking things like that. You know, if you've got like, you know, a bit of a wonky guitar part that has a lot of dynamics in it, you won't have it jumping out over the drums. I believe it's just started to rain, so you guys can hear that in the background. My Rode microphone really is worth its money. Rode, if you're hearing that too, sponsor me. We use Rode microphones. Bring the hi-hats down quite a fair bit, because a lot of the hi-hats actually sit in the overheads and sometimes in the toms if you don't edit out your dead spaces in between your toms. And the toms, I want the toms peaking at -6 as well, because the tom is a bit more of a transient. It's like the kick, right? It feels like the kick, and I want it to have a bit of body. So I will just mix it at the same level, maybe just underneath the kick, but it's still able to give that punch and that ring. If you want your drums to have ring, you need them to be a little bit loud. Bring down my overheads, and I'll also, with my overheads and my ambient mic, there's this knob here on FL Studio. It's a separation knob, stereo separation, so you can either make something completely like stereo separated, or you can make something totally mono. Now what I do with the overheads and the ambient to give it more room and more life is I separate both of them. You can already hear it. Now watch what happens when I separate the ambient. Now you can hear the room. You can feel the room, and you can hear the room that it was recorded in. Now it's just about balancing that. Bring up the level a bit more. That's drums, guys. Drums are done. Alright, so now I'm going to bring in the bass. I know I do things a little bit backwards by what I said before about building a house, starting with the skeleton first. But I just like making sure that I have everything to my liking. So we're going to bring in the bass now and show you how we dial in our bass. Alright, so go to our guitar DIs, got our bass DI here. Drop that sucker in and do the same gain staging thing with the bass as well. And we're going to assign it to the bass channel, or the bass sub channel, sorry, which is the first line, track 17. And we're going to drag down or copy the value from this channel and paste it so that, excuse me, both the drum sub bus and the bass sub bus are sitting exactly level with each other. This is actually very, very important to getting an even mix. Trust me, alright? You want to get the mix right here, not here. So now we'll start thinking about a bass tone, right? We'll see how this DI sounds right now. This is the DI of my Pearl White Ibanez sound gear. I think it's the SR300E. Humbucker position with Diodario, I think that's how you pronounce it, strings. That's just the DI sound of the bass. Nothing too fancy, nothing too special. Let's add an amp to it. So the amp sound that I like to use, it's a neural DSP. I use the, what's it called? The neural DSP, the A.L.A.S plugin. It honestly can't be beat. I have not found another bass plugin that sounds better than it. It can do almost anything. The only thing I'd say that it struggles with is getting like clean tones. So if you want to play funk music, for example, it's very, very difficult to get or dial in a clean slap tone for instance. If you want to try and do some Red Hot Chili Peppers stuff, it's a little bit difficult. So yeah, I'll drag that in a second and I'll show you how we dial in the tone. Alright, so now I've dragged in the A.L.A.S plugin to the correct track that the bass DI is running through, and this is how it now sounds. This is just with default, right? I've got my own setting. Well, technically I don't. This is the neural DSP setting that I like to use. This one's called Arc Reactor. I've used this. This was the sound that you hear on Blood Rose. I believe it's also the sound that you hear on Up on the Punk side. Although I probably could have mixed that song a bit better. Wink wink, nudge nudge, maybe a remix. Hey, it's actually, Jakey, it's coming up to the anniversary for Skeleton next month.
Oh, it is too, eh?
Yeah, bro. Yeah, bro. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Maybe a remix. Might remix it. Who knows? But yeah, so this is the setting that I like using right now. It's called Arc Reactor. It's very, very big bass sound. It's very, very sub heavy. Output to about -2. So we're not peaking too much, and adjust the noise gate. This mouse is giving me trouble. Adjust the noise gate to about -45. Now the next plugin I'm going to bring in is my bread and butter. Actually I use this on almost everything. It's the A.L.A. crystalloid algae plugins. They're made by Waves. They are so versatile. If you are an emerging where did that word come from? If you are an emerging producer that wants to produce bands or anything like that and really is struggling with how understanding all of this works, the crystalloid algae plugins go a long way into simplifying that and providing a helping hand in producing some world-class mixes. Don't consider it cheating, right? If it's available, if it's a tool for you to use it. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. Don't let anyone gatekeep you or, you know, bully you into thinking that you shouldn't use stuff like this. So I'm going to show you guys how to get an awesome bass tone. You don't need to duplicate the original stem track and run a clean track and an amp track. You just need one track and you just need to pull the right stuff out of it, right? And you also need to compress it right. Show you how. So we'll bring in the crystalloid algae plugin. Right, I use the A.L.A. bass in mono stereo, which basically means any effect applied to the signal is going to work in mono and stereo. If you import the stereo plugin, any effect that you apply, if you try to switch a bass to mono, which you should be, your bass should be in mono to begin with, and the signal should always end in mono, your effects aren't going to be as prominent. If not, they're not even going to be there at all. So yeah, use the mono/stereo plugin. That's for all mono signals, by the way. Now I got my own preset for this. Basically, took me a while to dial this in, but this is how you accentuate the tone and draw just a little bit more out of it. I call it chorus bass duff, but basically what we've just done is introduced a little bit more distortion. So we got a little bit more distortion here. Calm down. Got a little bit more distortion here. We've got a bit of a chorus effect on it. We've just boosted the sub by about 0.5 decibels. We've boosted the treble by about 0.25. And we boosted the lower bass frequencies by about 1 decibel. So it's boosting everything and just shifting the signal, the distortion signal just a little bit to give it that extra, I call it growl, you know what I mean? That's what it's called here too. Growl, bite, tiger, pantherous, Pantera. That's the word. It gives it more Pantera. Right? Everyone loves Pantera. What, you don't?
I love Pantera.
And get the fuck out of here. You don't like fucking Pantera? Get out of here. Alright, this is what Pantera is. We built this shit on Pantera, bro. Alright, you clicked on a video about this song called Pantera. Alright, this song is inspired by Pantera. It terrorizes people. It's that metal, bro. It's that metal. Click off this video now. Click off this video. If you don't mess with Pantera, if you don't like Pantera, click off this video now. Alright? But Phil, I want 5 minutes alone with you, boy. Yeah. Yeah, boy. I'm coming. I'm coming. Don't ask me what I'm coming for. I'm coming in your face! Anyway, let's get on with the show. Let's get on with the show. So I don't think I'll actually use the chorus sound on it because I want it to be more of a mono sound, right? So I will just switch this over to completely mono now, so it's true mono. I will add a EQ filter. Now, different producers have different ways of EQing things. I basically, all I do is just a cut, a low pass and a high pass cut. For the bass, I do it at about 500k, not 500k, 5000k, and at about 40k. Now, a lot of you probably going to want to shoot me right now for cutting my low end like that. Thinking, oh, you need to make space for the kick, you need to make space for the kick. You don't necessarily need to make space for the kick with your EQ, right? You're helping the kick by removing some of the lower subs out of the bass. It does help, and it helps clean up the mud from the mix. But if your kick is mixed above your bass, your kick is always going to hit above your bass, right? So why do you need to cut out parts of your bass that can still be in the song to accentuate the song and help beefing up the guitar tone? It all adds to the low end at the end of the day, and if it's all hitting at the same time, in the same key, in the same tuning, it's going to sound massive. So why cut out those parts that don't need to be cut out? Especially if you're only working with a track like this that's just bass, guitar and drums. We're not doing opera here, alright? This is metal. Okay, we want heavy, so this is how we get heavy, and this is how we get A.L.A.S heavy. It's a bit different to how you other guys do it. You guys mix your bass way too low. I'm about to show you something. So I'm actually cutting the low end at 25 hertz, alright? I know that hurts, but there's a reason. And I'll just cut cut it at 5k basically, around 5k. Now what I'm going to do is bring in a plugin called Loudmax, which is a brick wall limiter. Now if you use this on your bass, if you already know about this, you're a bit too advanced to be watching this video. And you've probably already clicked off by now, judging by half of the things that I've already done up until now. But basically, I'm bringing in Loudmax. This is the key. A brick wall limiter is the key to having consistent bass evenly across your mix, right? So, you don't want to overdo it, but you want it just enough so that even when you're playing a bit quieter, it's just as consistent as when you're playing loud. So that's sort of what it does. It brings everything to the same level, and it doesn't allow anything to peak over it. So you'll see how it works in a second. So I've got it at -3.6 right now, and if you notice as the bass is playing, it's a consistent level the whole time. It's not bouncing down here and then going up there. It's not juddering up and down. It's consistently this level the whole time. That's the key to consistent bass in your mixes. Now all you got to do is just mix it with your kick. Bring the drums back in. There's our bass and our drums mixed. That's our bass and drums. Now we'll just bring in some guitars.